Alright, I'm gonna just do this one real quick. People have been talking about Michael Jackson and the Gary, Indiana thing. Indian, what is, they call it that, regardless of what it is. They call it that, an Indian. That's an Indian. Punishment, crime and punishment. The crime is intelligence having an awakening as a whole. And, the zeitgeist has been people have been waking up or uncloaking their third and getting back to the true essence of everything. But MJ, the mystical journey, my but then the hook came, the J. But then, so they was talking about, everybody's talking about MJ, the movie, everything. I think Mike wanted to be understood, so he came to me yesterday and I was having like a conversation with, I was just tapping in with, I watched just some interviews with him and just him from all phases, because Mike's my nigga, you know what I mean? Blue Gangsta, like, I was born when he was on the Bad Tour, and my auntie had me watching the Moonwalker movie. And, Mike is Mike, you know what I mean? So, the angel. So, it's like, just the story is Michael. It just came to me like Michael Jackson's story is the story of the Turtle Islander in the inception of America. And, from inception, from the beginning, he was the soul, soul brother. You know what I mean? Talent. They was trying, he put through the rigors, you know what I mean? He had his brothers, but he was the golden child. You know what I mean? So then look at that as the tribe, And then over the years, as he became more talented and more prominent, his civilization grew. He had his whole community that were functioning. There was success. But the industries then decided that they didn't want him to exist in that realm as the soul brother. They was resisting putting him on MTV and all this and that. But then over the course of his career, if you watch, basically it's like he has such a big spirit. And then you think about like Single White Female as a movie, or you think about the story of the mafia and the czars and all this, collaborating to try to usurp and overcome and overtake and be like, well, that's the soul, we need that. So then they tried to integrate him into their world, and over the course of time, he became kind of like, they figured they could use him as a beacon for them to get the soul and acceptance on our side. So it's like he became a physical representation of, there's stories that after the Pepsi thing, he disappeared and it was somebody else and whatnot. But I was watching, and then it's like, whatever the spirit is Mike. The Mike canon. The spirit was so great, I'm pretty sure that was Mike. I believe that was Mike. And just him being such an angelic spirit or such a powerful spirit, even though he's like, he gonna talk his shit and he's like, I want my show to be perfect, nigga, you're fired. You know what I mean? That's just what happens when you're dealing with a bunch of motherfuckers who's trying to latch themselves onto you and then subtly fucking up your algorithm because you're trying to communicate the God frequency to your tribe. But they're inhabiting your space like these gang stalkers and shit, and trying to be in the camera with you and be like, see, we're certified too, just like this. And he's looking around like, so, he had to go through that whole thing, which is why he maintained his inner child, and he would welcome people in, but they had to have the innocent spirit in order to, you know what I mean? So he's chopping niggas' heads off. He's a real nigga. Mike is a real goon, you know what I mean? But just looking at his story from the beginning to what is perceived as the end, because, I wouldn't put it past him to be somewhere in the cut right now, just chilling. But the way it played out was just like how this land played out, as far as like it was the soul brother land and soul sister land. And then the mafias and all these people showed up, which is when you get to the Moonwalker era, when he's like in the mafia outfits, and Billie Jean, or a Smooth Criminal. Listen to the songs. It's like a big spirit addressing everything as a microcosm that happened in the journey, from going from the Soul Brothers to Scream, you know what I mean? And leave me alone. Like, those, it's like they keep stalking you, and then it's like over the course of time they're inundating you with other, from the brother to other. And then he became so engulfed or inundated with them that then his visage became that, and it was like a full demonstration of, like, they put so much cream in his coffee that he is so strong, though he can still hold it, but he's now fully embodying and looking like that. And then you got the tribe going through what they're going through today, where everybody's coming to consciousness, and then they're like, take that electricity, no power, you ain't got no power, you know what I mean? The Indian, the Gari, like, you gotta look at the symbols of the letters, you know what I mean? G is like the God, perfection. Apex. So G is like the tribe. The R is, I think it's a 9, so that's spirit. And then the Seek, which is Y. So it's like Gary. That's why they highlighted Gary, at least. And then his home, you know what I mean? So it's like a correspondence of, like, the same people who was trying to inundate the tribe being like, we're gonna be you now, and y'all better shut up or you're gonna get punished, you know what I mean? And that whole thing, and him fighting, against the speaking out in politics, and they don't care about us, and Stranger in Moscow, and all of these songs are like in the canon of our story and what we're going through. And his album History, you know what I mean, like Dangerous, and like they labeled him bad right in '88. They made him a pup. That's when they criminalized him for his tribal acts, and he had to fight back. And then he became like, you know what I mean? Because before he was like, he loved, and then it was like he was tired of getting persecuted, and he was like, "Cause I'm bad, okay, I am whatever you say I am, niggas." And then it kept going. But just look back over the career and then compare it to the story of, when they came over here and started trying to inundate in Euro everything, and it's crazy, man. But shout out to my